Are there other traces in the Bible of objects that might reasonably be interpreted as technology? We have the ark, we have the shamir, we have the kavod, anything else?
We have the ruach.
There's the rising up,
Yes.
the flying.
Yes, the ruach.
So some sort of suggestion of a flying machine.
Yes, flying machine. That those are described clearly as flying machine. Of course, I don't know.
In the Bible.
In the Bible.
Give me an example.
In the Bible. For example, in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Exodus, is clearly described the kavod of Yahweh. That when Moses called to Yahweh the possibility to see this kavod, and Yahweh says to him, you cannot stay in front of kavod, because if you are in front of kavod, you die. And so that is important. Yahweh cannot do nothing. So God is impotent, not potent, in front of the dangerosity of the kavod. And that is very interesting. Yahweh tells to Moses, you can hide you after these rocks. So the rocks can do what God cannot do.
Right. I
So
absolutely get
impressive.
your point. Yes, very
Impressive.
much so.
So, Mauro, a pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about your work.
It's a pleasure for me, and I thank you for having me here in your home.
You're
It's
welcome.
an honor.
You're welcome. Very nice to meet you. Now, fundamentally, the issue at stake is translation, the translation of the Bible. So let's establish some things clearly. When we talk about the Bible, we're talking about the Old Testament.
When we talk about the Bible, normally we talk about the Old Testament.
Yeah. Is the,
Also the
may
name...
I interrupt there, just to clarify, is the Old Testament identical in contents to the Torah?
we have many versions of the Old Testament.
Yes.
We have the Old Testament of in the Masoretic version,
Yeah.
that is the official version. We have the Old Testament of the Samaritans, who contains 300 differences from the Old Testament of the Masoretic. We have the Old Testament in the Dead Sea Scrolls that have, for example, only in the book of Isaiah, 250 differences.
Okay.
So we have many Old Testament, but they, the theologians, says that the Old Testament, the true, is that in the version of Masoretic.
Okay. Explain.
Mighty. 1,000 years after their first pronunciation.
This is Cosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Cosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast. And I think we're going to be continuing on the climate change information on past climate change, modern climate change, and the real data, digging into the actual science. Right, Randall? That's the goal.
The goal. The goal. Yes, we're going to follow the science.
Follow the science.
That's what they say, right? We should follow the science.
Yeah.
So by golly, we're going to follow the science.
Excellent.
Big truck that says science on the back. I'm doing it.
I'm a rebel. I want to go, when they say follow the science, I go the other way, right? You just run in the other direction. Find the fringiest stuff you can. That's not how you do it, though.
Well,
Follow the fringe.
Randall follows the rules.
A lot
Follow
harder
the
to find
science.
graphs and charts that way.
well, what can I say, guys? I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that, Russ.
Another goal accomplished.
After that live stream last week with, the tinfoil hat guy next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That guy's gone.
I've been disoriented about the whole process here. So I'm still trying to get my head back onto the track here.
We
Good
fired
thing
that
Mike
guy.
wasn't here for that. Or was he? Were you here for that, Mike?
No, I don't think I was.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
a bit
it's
distracting.
probably better that you weren't here, Mike. I mean, there are certain things that, that we need to insulate you from.
Should I be wearing the tinfoil hat now?
That's why he couldn't be here. Mike was fully wrapped in tinfoil that day.
What is the difference between tin foil and aluminum foil?
Tin versus aluminum?
Yeah, one is made of tin, the other one's made of
What were you
aluminum.
using?
Tin foil bread is aluminum.
That guy, he was using aluminum foil. So I heard. That the Thursday guy. Yeah, which is not Kyle. Just in case you guys didn't know, we don't know who that guy was. He was a stand-in.
The Slim Jim guy, apparently. Supposed to snap into a Slim Jim. Hey, can we get paid for that?
So there is a difference between aluminum and tin. Tin is rarely found on Earth, as it is the 49th most abundant metal, whereas aluminum is the 3rd most abundant metal and the 9th most abundant element on Earth, found almost everywhere. So they're different, although tin has been used by humans since ancient times.
Yeah, isn't it in bronze?
When compared to aluminum, which was discovered quite late in human history.
Yeah.
So tin is an extraterrestrial metal?
Well, let's see. Tin does not occur by itself and is extracted from another compound. Likewise, aluminum is also not found free in nature, but is combined with other elements in a dissolved state. Both form alloys. Tin forms an alloy with copper to make bronze, pewter, and soft solder, and is used widely for coatings, such as for steel cans and sheets. Tin has been in use for making jewelry and ornaments, whereas aluminum had once been considered as a rare metal and more expensive than gold. They're both very pliable and flexible metals. They're both anti-corrosive and easily machined. Okay, so there we go.
Yeah, I think the top of the pyramidion on the top of the Washington Monument is the aluminum. Because at the time, it was considered more precious than gold.
Ooh, so
right.
here's some good information, important information. Tin is considered to be toxic to humans, and so is aluminum, but not inherently toxic.
Yeah, I think of tin more like solder, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can be toxic.
Oh yeah, you don't want to eat solder. That was, I remember when we had metal shop class in 8th grade, the instructor was very explicit about that. Now don't be eating the solder.
Don't chew on it. Yeah.
Don't chew on it like
Don't chew
yeah.
on it.
Yeah, hayseed.
Right. Try not to breathe the smoke. Even the smoke is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I loved my metal shop. I liked all that. I liked soldering and welding, and
Yeah.
but you know what my favorite shop though was? I think was print shop, because we made books. We printed things and then we made books out of them. That was I really liked that. So I was making books, you know, and we would have, you know, the instructor would come around and go, you know, here's what the different people did. You know, we would bind them and put labels on them. So all of my books were published by Randall House Publishing.
Of course.
I was Randall House Publishing.
Not Random House.
No, Randall House.
Randall House. Very good.
But see,
I
there
don't have a
was
print shop.
You didn't have a print
that sounds
shop?
like good. No.
Oh, it was really fun. And for years I had some of those books. I don't know where we parted company. Probably one of the many moves over the years. Somewhere, my books that I should have been passed down from generation to generation. Somewhere.
Were they leather bound?
No,
Did you make any leather
they
bound?
weren't leather bound.
Acid-free paper, at least?
I don't remember. Probably not.
You didn't make the paper out of hemp?
Well, that was early. That was lithology shop where we were, you know, stone tool making shop was 7th grade, where we learned napping. We make arrowheads and spear points and scrapers, various things. And then that was
Okay, I'm not
followed
buying
by
that.
hunting shop where we would go out after megafauna
Okay, did you use the flint?
and shoot the megafauna, you know, hunt the
the flint
megafauna
tools.
with our bows and arrows and our spears.
Okay.
That was
And use the-
that was
and use the
7th grade
scrapers.
shop.
Use the scrapers for tanning hides?
Yeah, that was. Now, see, that's the kind of shop classes we needed to have.
Yeah.
We need to bring that kind of stuff back, because, I mean, the way things are going, we might actually need it.
Yeah.
Unless we get these damn you-know-what out of power.
Yeah,
We won't say the word, though.
I'm letting Kyle learn the napping. He's already.
Yeah, I've already mastered napping. I had a great nap a couple hours ago when I got home, and I tell you what, if I don't have my nap,
Oh, there we go. Napping.
Knew
I
that
can do
was
that in my
coming.
sleep.
well, you know, I do, you know, I actually consider having a nap. That's almost like a religious ceremony, you know, religious observance. It's part of my religion, my own personal religion. I don't belong to organized religion. I created my own personal religion, and I'm
Right.
and I'm the only one in it. I'm the only Randallist that's in the religion of Randallism. Hey, now there's an idea.
Now it's begun.
Yeah.
There's an idea.
Start a religion, Randall.
Well, you know, from time to time, these comments come in about, you know, Michael.
Yeah.
Hey, there are some tax benefits to having a church.
Tax benefits to having a cult? Really?
Yeah.
Or you get it right if you have a. How does that work? All right, should probably be serious, right?
No.
No.
You said you
Okay.
were still affected by the reflections still bouncing around your studio from the aluminum hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
that
I'm
was
starting
going
to
on
think
there.
now. I first noticed the effects back in 8th grade when I was chewing on
On solder.
chewing on solder, chewing on a
Yo,
solder
what's up,
stick.
anomaly?
Picking your teeth with it.
Yo,
Not
what's
good.
up, Sandoval? Or what's up, Christian? How you doing, man?
All right, so last episode, number 90, you just
What's up,
started going
Anomaly?
into urban heat island, so I don't know
Yeah.
if you're going to
Yo,
start
Christian,
there, but that's where we ended the last
My
one.
supervisor
Well, yeah,
did
we
not
should talk
reply
about urban
yet.
heat islands.
It's really
There's a lot
strange. I don't think he
that
got my
unpack there
messages.
and the role they
Because
might
I
play. And
sent
I'm
him...
not
send
satisfied that I
him-
know
what's up,
everything I
Ron?
want
How
to
you
know
doing,
about urban heat islands, other than the fact that they're
I sent him a
influence
bunch
is
of
significant.
Telegram
So
messages, and then I sent him a text message,
let's
and then I would send
just
him an
for round
email.
numbers say that the climate has warmed
So,
by a
which is
degree
not
in
like
the
him. I
last
don't think
6
he's receiving the
So-
phone
and-
messages.
Has the climate? Here's the question.
Just for FYI, just to
Is
keep
the
you up to date,
climate,
man.
The entire
Yes,
climate uniformly warm?
I am, dude. I am trying to get the meeting
Or
with
is
him.
there variability?
I just need to get in
The
touch
answer,
with
I
him.
think, is clear. There's variability. But
Probably
variability
busy.
induced
Yeah,
by what?
yeah.
Well,
I guess maybe probably.
topography is a huge factor. Topography affects prevailing wind patterns. You know,
I
the
did talk with the owner
the movement of the
sometime. The
atmosphere.
cat
completely,
hologram.
you know, the
Oh
movement
yeah,
of
that
the
was
jet
the
stream. And there's a
that was the
myriad of
party
factors
that
will influence
Real Pink Elephants
the
went
position
to
of
out
the
in
jet stream.
BC.
Ocean currents are constantly shifting. You know, La Nina and El Nino are now well recognized as being natural shifts, major shifts in ocean current. Those major shifts in ocean current can divulge years
come
of
on.
accumulated heat. And then
You
that
seem really
in
nice,
turn
man.
can have
How'd that go?
consequences on atmospheric circulation. Type of vegetation that's in a place affects the amount of groundwater that's being evaporated. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Good,
And
nice,
we haven't
man.
even talked about the
What did you stream?
possibility of cosmic things like meteoritic dust, or terrestrial things like volcanic emissions, changes in the geomagnetic field, changes in
Thanks,
the
buddy. Thanks for
sun's
understanding gaming. Nice,
radiational
man.
output,
So you got
which
it
has
working? You got
generally been
the
downplayed in
Overwatch
all
and
of
the camera working?
IPCC models.
That's dope, dude.
But
That's sick.
you know, we've all learned a whole
I should
lot
see. I
about
should
the
check
sun
out the.
since the IPCC
stream.
was launched back in the early 90s. And I don't think that new insight and knowledge into the role of the sun has been adequately
No way. That's too bad, man.
incorporated
I'm sorry, man.
into the models. And that, you know, I think there's a reason for that. But I think what we were going to talk about was specifically, we're trying to explain to people what the urban heat island actually is. Let's see if I can pull up a few diagrams here. We'll take a look.
Sorry, man. Sorry to hear that.
And now, of course, you know, this is the heat island effect is based upon the fact that obviously in the city you have material that acts as
Yeah, it takes a
thermal
lot of
absorbing
power to
mass.
to
So when
stream.
the sun shines on the city,
A lot of
it's shining
memory or
on
whatever.
concrete, a lot of concrete, pavement, asphalt, you know, anything. I mean, when you look at a city,
good,
there's
man?
a whole lot more. You have mechanical equipment, you have air conditioning units that discharge heat. So if you've got a thermometer close to one of those, it's going to pick up
good,
on
thanks.
that. You know yourself that if you have like a
Toad,
northern
yeah, man,
hemisphere, you got
legend.
a south-facing wall and a north-facing wall. Well, you know that south-facing wall is going to be could be 10 degrees or more warmer than the north-facing wall on the same day at the same latitude, right? The northern wall may not get any sun all day, and you go stand over there and you feel that wall, it's going to be substantially cooler than the south-facing wall. So now, if you were trying to get an idea of, say, the average temperature,
Good,
of a
man.
place,
I didn't
you know,
really
let's
work
say
that
you buy
much
some
today.
land
Today I
and
kind
you've
of
got a little bit of acreage. You want to know
more
the
of a day
average
off as
temperature.
well.
So you have a barn, so you go and you put the
But I
you put
tried
a
to get-
thermometer on the south side of the barn in the sun.
Already got
and
your
you collect
dressing
a
shoes
bunch
for
of
work?
data.
Oh, wow,
And then
nice,
you have
man.
another thermometer and you're collecting
Cool, man.
data on the north side of the
For-
barn. Well, at the end of a year or a couple of years,
cool,
obviously
man.
your average temperature on the south side of the barn is going to be higher than on the north side of the barn. So the question is okay, what is the
exciting.
true measure of the average temperature? Well, do you add those together and just have them, or how do you do that? Well, you have to have a lot of data points in a lot of different environments to do that. So what has happened is that temperature measuring
You start with me? Oh,
stations
thanks, man.
have have
Thanks, buddy. Nice, man. Yeah, dude. It's all
gone
good,
from
man.
being mostly rural
Thanks, dude.
to very urban. And this has happened over the last
Yeah, man. I'm going
decades,
to.
over
I
the
gotta
last
talk
50,
with.
60 years.
We gotta get on the point with Andy.
You know, so if you have an airport that was rural 50 years ago, and now it's in the middle of the suburbs, you know, you're going to have a warmer temperature, clearly.
Isn't this why satellite temperature data is generally more reliable? Or is
Yes.
that okay?
That's right. Yes. Yes. So I'll go back to.
Nice, man.
Oh, this is basically your textbook right here. This is Frederick Lütgens and Edward J. Tarbuck, who wrote a series of classical textbooks back in the 70s and 80s, probably even to the 90s, that were used in
No, I think it's just he's
geology,
not receiving the
meteorology,
messages. It's not like him at all.
climatology classes, etc., environmentalist classes. So this is from 1986. This was the take. So we you know, this urban heat island has been a factor really since the 19th century. I think the first guy that wrote about it was writing about it maybe in the 1880s, 1870s even, and it was about the difference between temperatures in London and then in rural England outside of London. So the awareness of the urban heat island effect goes back at least a century, probably a century and a half even. Okay, so this is what they'll say here. This is one of the textbooks they wrote. It's called The Atmosphere, an introduction to meteorology. The most apparent human impact on climate is the modification of the atmospheric environment by the building of cities.
Top sequel, man. Yeah,
See
dude.
what I said here? The most apparent human impact
Likewise, man.
on climate is the modification of the atmospheric environment by the building of cities. The construction of every factory, road, office building, and house destroys existing microclimates and creates new ones of great complexity. As far back as the early 19th century, here we go, Luke Howard, the Englishman who is most remembered for his cloud classification scheme, oh, here we go, recognized that the weather in London was different from that of the surrounding rural countryside. Indeed, with the coming of the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, the trend toward urbanization accelerated, leading to significant changes in the climate in and near most.
Oh, man. That was really fast.
Certainly the most studied, certainly the most studied.
We'll stream on the weekends,
well-documented
so I won't
urban
miss it. Oh, it's all
climatic
good, man.
effect
Thanks, man.
Is the urban heat
No stress, my
island,
dude. That's a
usually
good schedule.
abbreviated UHI.
That's so thoughtful of you.
Heat
Thanks,
island.
man. I'm honored.
The term simply refers
really
to
am,
the
man.
fact that temperatures within cities are generally higher than in rural areas. One easy way to view the phenomenon is by examining satellite images. So I'm going to show you a satellite image here. This is the 17 urban heat islands that show up in New Hampshire, Massachusetts.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're excited to
Iowa.
join and learn
And
about
these were
finances
from
and stuff.
Satellite images that were thermal imaging
Financial planning and shit.
photographs. So
Investing.
what it shows here is that small as well as large cities produce the effect. So then let me
Oh,
open
cool, man.
this and
That's well planned out. That's well thought out.
a screen share. Are you seeing figure 13-1?
Yes.
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration satellite photograph of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, taken on May 23rd, 1978, showing 17 distinct urban heat islands associated with cities ranging in population from 32,000 to 625,000, which is Boston, okay? At the time of satellite flyover, the Northeast USA was experiencing clear skies with low surface winds and moderate relative humidity, ideal conditions for revealing
Sounds like
the
a good
heat
plan.
island effect. The wind, if it's windy, that will obscure it, because obviously if you've got heat emanating from some mass, whatever it might be, and the wind is blowing,
Please.
it's going to blow that heat away as it's being emitted.
Right.
Whereas if it's still, then, you know, the
It's not
air
gonna
is
work.
not moving the heat. So you can get a better idea of how it might be
Really, really
stronger
bad
in some
run.
places and weaker in others.
Slow.
And let's see, I believe
I
the
fucked
next
it
one
up.
here Yes, here we go, metropolitan St. Louis. So you got that, right? All of those white areas,
It was busy today
that's enhanced
in
heat.
your stream
Yes.
And all of these
or
are
at work.
correlated directly with urban density. So you can look right here, just from this, the thermal imaging, the white areas are developed areas with buildings and things. The dark areas are rural areas. And here's St. Louis. This is a computer-enhanced thermal infrared satellite image of the St. Louis urban heat island on July 28, 1977. Temperature variations are depicted in shades of gray ranging from black, which is the warmest, which would be, right in here, I guess. Or look down here, there's a reservoir. Why
Yeah,
would
so
that be?
the water is warmer.
Oh, you went to work
the
today,
water
too.
is acting as a-
Good, man.
Yeah.
Glad. How was
Yeah,
your? How was work
acting
today?
as
How
thermal
was it? It was
mass.
busy.
Yeah.
Temperature variation, the highest temperatures occur along the west bank of the Mississippi River. Well, yeah, so that's this right here.
Yeah,
Right.
that's downtown where all the tall buildings are, and
Yeah.
all the concrete.
Yep. Yeah, where the highest building density and industrialization are found. So the heat island is also revealed
just so
when we
dumb.
examine statistical data.
So fucking dumb.
Table 13.2 shows the heat island by using mean temperatures. And table 13-3 by using a less common statistic, the number of days on which the temperature either equals or exceeds 32 degrees.
So my man, it's not a
or
a
is
job,
lower
right?
than
It's
or equal to 0 degrees
it's
centigrade.
my work. It's you
Although
don't get.
used less frequently
I mean, you
today,
get paid if
table
you.
13-3 are
So we have to
nonetheless
find our own
revealed.
clients.
They show us that in addition to the fact that
So,
mean temperatures are higher in the
like, no,
city,
it wasn't. Like, I'm
these
just starting out.
locales
Like, I
also
haven't
have
made
a
any
greater
money yet
number
with
of
this
hot
business.
days and fewer cold days
So I'm just
than
starting
outlying
out.
areas. That's
I just
the
got my
takeaway
license.
here. The magnitude of the
So
temperature
no,
differences, as shown by these tables,
Being busy
is
for me
probably
would be
even
like
greater than the
contacting
figures
people and
indicate,
setting
because the studies have shown that
appointments.
temperatures observed at suburban airports
But I
are
didn't.
usually higher than those in truly.
I didn't really do much of that
rural
today. I plan
environments.
to get back to it tomorrow, I guess.
Here's the graph. Average temperatures in degrees
I
centigrade
hate
for
talking on the
Philadelphia
phone, though,
Airport,
man.
downtown Philadelphia.
I hate it. I
Pin
hate
your
talking on the
averages.
phone so much.
So yeah, here's your downtown.
And it's nothing personal against anyone.
is
I just
warmer
hate.
than the airport. So there's the
I'm
annual mean. It's warmer by
I'm a big
0.8
introvert.
degrees. So your mean June
Kind of.
maximum is
You like it
warmer
good, man. That's
by
good. That's what I mean. That's
not
like
quite a degree.
if you like talking on the phone,
mean
man.
December
You're
maximum.
this business is for
0.3,
you. That's
But
what I'm
this
saying.
is the
That's what I'm
airport.
saying,
That was
man.
the
How do you
point
be
that they
good
were
at
making
this?
in the previous one.
Me, I hate
is
it. I
that
hate
the
calling
airports are
people,
warmer.
talking with people on the
The
phone.
suburban airports
I don't
are
mind
usually
streaming
higher
and,
than
and
those
chatting,
in truly
but man, on the
rural
phone.
environments. So it's showing the
Oh,
difference
it's
between
just
downtown and
so-
airport. It's not showing the difference between airports and rural environments, which would make those differences make the spread in those
just don't wanna
numbers
do it.
considerably greater. Because the difference actually between the rural areas and the airports is greater
what I
than
mean.
the airports and the downtown.
That's why I think I've had like
Got it? As is typical, the data for Philadelphia show that the heat island is most pronounced.
this information is so
when minimum
technical, though. I
temperatures are
mean,
examined.
that's why I made a
Although
video.
maximum temperatures are
just
only
because
0.3
there's
to
so much
0.4 degrees
information.
centigrade higher in the city, minimums are from 1.2 to 1.7
To share it on the phone,
degrees centigrade high.
I wouldn't like that. If I received like
But again,
personally,
this is suburban airports.
I would prefer fucking.
And so, I mean, anybody knows his experiences for yourself. Let's say you're in one of the big box stores, or you're in a grocery store, and it's air
Oh,
conditioned.
come on, fuck off.
Or even not. If you walk out, particularly on a summer day here
Send
in
you the
Georgia,
link on
you can walk
Instagram.
out onto a
What
big paved
for
parking lot,
what's
and
that,
it's
man?
just like an oven. And I'm sure you guys experience that down where you're at.
Sure.
And yeah, and you know damn
The
good and
link?
well, if you were walking in some trees, it would be way cooler.
Right.
And even if you were walking in an unvegetated
Oh, if I do
area,
any
but it
video,
was
oh, thanks,
regular
man.
ground,
Thanks, buddy. You're the man,
some kind
dude.
of ground cover. it
Yeah,
would
I
be
sent
cool.
you.
Yeah, a field with grass is still. gonna be
I sent
cooler
you
than-
the.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question is to what extent does that affect
Sure, man.
the averages that are being used to determine what the average increase in global temperature has been, let's say, over the last century? because clearly urban areas have grown.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I have
exponentially over the
another
last
one I can
century.
send you.
So is that affecting
It talks about.
the data
Oh,
and
thanks,
the
man.
interpretation of that data?
It
When
talks
you start
about.
looking at
It's called How to
temperature averages.
Invest, and it talks about
Oh.
funds. Doesn't talk about like what funds to buy and what stocks.
Let's see. Here's
Talks
the
about-
average
It explains what stocks and bonds are.
temperatures. Let's look at this
what
one. This
funds
is a pretty
are.
good one here.
I didn't want to send
Here's
it
your
at first because I
average
sent
monthly
it.
temperatures from 1981 to
to others.
2010. Temperatures in degrees Celsius.
Actually, I didn't send it to anybody. Actually,
And this is from the UK. And here's from Heathrow. Here's from 2 airports that,
it's
you know,
pretty technical,
have
but
a
I
lot
think
of asphalt
it
and
gives a really good
runways and
explanation of
buildings
what
and stuff. And
scale
here's
we
from the
work
UK
at
as a whole,
for investing.
which
Because we
includes all
we work
all
at
of
the
rural areas.
fund level.
Well, here you can see the temperature
Which is a group of
differential
stocks and
is
bonds.
pretty substantial. It shows right up. You'll see that the 2 airports are very close.
Oh man, I don't know, my
in
man.
their average temperature for the year, but then you look at the UK as a whole, and you'll see it's
I don't know, my dude.
significantly lower. If we look at the scale over here on the left from 0 to 30 degrees centigrade, we can get an idea. So this
don't
is,
know.
you know, if
Maybe,
we figure
probably.
that halfway between 0 and 10 is 5, then this is about maybe a 6. This is probably about
I mean,
an
of
8,
course,
right?
the
Wouldn't
UK
you
is
say?
awesome.
Yeah.
And about the
As
same
are
here. This
you.
is probably, you know, 8.5 or 9.
I have no recent plans, though, my man.
This is going to probably be about
Okay,
almost
let
a
me-
12. I mean, what the point here is
Yeah, let me
that
send
the,
you.
the difference is, you know, it's up to a couple
Thanks, dude. I
degrees
appreciate
or
it. I
more
appreciate your interest.
on average, right? So that's important.
Appreciate you
Okay, so here's your Washington, D.C. heat aisle.
and who you
All
are.
right, so here's your Potomac River. Average minimum temperatures in degrees centigrade during the winter season. Note that the city center had an average temperature
Appreciate it,
almost
big
4
time.
degrees centigrade or 7.2
This is the video.
degrees Fahrenheit
I'm pasting it
higher
here.
than the outlying areas.
Well, that makes sense for DC.
Yeah, especially
of
Yeah, I'll
hot
paste it here because we're talking
That's
about it
right,
in here,
that's
and I'll send
exactly
you. I'll
right.
send it to
A
you
lot
by
of hot air
Instagram
was
too.
emitted
Yeah.
there, so
Had to make that joke.
It's not even.
Well,
it was
yeah.
about a week
you
ago.
beat me to it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
stole
okay. Yeah, I mean,
It's the
you
least
beat
I can
me
do
about,
with
about a half a second.
what's his
I
name not
was about
replying,
to-
Andy.
My
Not
mouth was
replying.
actually
Today.
already starting to open.
I'm quick with the jokes. Sorry.
I know. It's,
Boom.
so now that's now when you're talking about a 4 degrees difference, that's pretty substantial. That's a big difference. So, you know, so now looking at this, you want to get
Appreciate
the
it, man.
average of Washington, D.C. Where do you put your thermometers and how many? You know what I'm saying? Let's say if most of your thermometers are concentrated, let's say within this thermocline right here. Let's see. Right here, minus 1.7, as opposed to
Thanks,
out
man.
here, it's going to bias, obviously.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so there, I'm just kind of fading in with a map of the DC area, so you can actually see. It's a topographic map of DC.
Yeah, man. So on Telegram, when someone reads your message, I think it gives 2 check marks.
All right, so here's heat wave characteristics in the United States by decade. Now, let's see, I have something about this because I actually did write something about
Might give Andy a
this
call tomorrow.
particular graph right here. Let me see, what did I say here? I think I got it.
I will
right
give him
here.
a call tomorrow.
Anyways, this graph, look at the 4 categories. here.
Should
You've
reply
got
to the email.
heat wave frequency, you've got heat wave duration, you've got the heat wave season, you know, how long does it last, and the heat wave intensity. Now, when you look at this graph, let's see, where was this graph shown?
He's religious. Some religious
This
people
is,
they take
they
take, like, Holy Thursday off.
From the website of the Environmental Protection Agency. Okay. This is on a page
I don't know,
titled
maybe there's like a
Climate
Tuesday.
Change Indicators Heat Wave.
Lent
Okay, that's the
Tuesday.
title. The
I don't know.
subtitle reads, this indicator describes trends in multi-day extreme heat events across the United States. The graph goes back to 1961, right? You see here the 1960s, so that graph started in 1961. So looking at this, we can see this is pretty much a serious crisis we're heading into, right? Because look at this. Look at this. Your average number of heat waves per year. Look how that's gone up from average number just over 2 in the 1960s to 6 in the 2020s.
Yeah.
The number of heat waves per year. And then let's over here, this one over here to the right, the average length of individual heat waves in days, it's gone up too. Look, from the average heat wave in the 1960s was only 3 days long, but in the 2020s, it was 4 days long. So yeah, it's gotten an extra day longer. Average length of the annual heat wave season in days. Oh man, look at this. From the 1960s, the average length of the heat wave season, what is that, about 24 days?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you look at this one, the 2020s, oh my God, more than 70 days.
72 days.
72 days. Average temperature above the local threshold during heat waves. So yeah, above the average. So here in the 1960s, it was only 2 degrees above average temperature during a heat wave. 2020s, so this isn't quite as scary looking, but taken all together, this is, yeah, there have been, let's see. So these 4 graphs, go back to 1961, and looking at this, we can see we are in a serious climate crisis. The heat wave frequency, let's see, which is this one right here, is almost 3 times.
Christian, you are over 18,
what
right?
it was back in the 60s.
This business, you have to be over 18.
Same for the average length of the heat wave season. Clearly, things are getting much worse fast.
Okay, nice. Just make sure I tell my mom everything too.
So, yeah.
I tell my mom everything too. Oh, that's cool, man. I'm 37.
You know, all that climate change denial stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I
you guys
assume
remember the
working at Amazon, traveling back and forth to Houston, being a baller in Florida.
Yes.
What did we discover?
Fucking North
There's
Miami, Hollywood.
Measuring, shenanigans going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're counting lower rated tornadoes, and of course adding the
Yeah. What we
the
found with
number of-
tornadoes was that
She
the
could be-
numbers
well,
that
she-
they
I
were
mean-
portraying as being
Dude, I didn't-
the
I'll be
actual
honest.
number of tornadoes was in reality
Well,
the reporting
okay.
of tornadoes.
Right, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
The Doppler radar came in.
like
Yeah,
I
Doppler
want you to
radar
know,
came in and
it's gonna take
multiple
some
factors,
time
including
to
much
make
greater
money first,
population
right?
density,
You
so
gotta
more eyes to
pass.
see
You gotta get your license by passing the
tornadoes,
exam.
and also methods of
I've been in for a year
being able to
and
go
a
in the
half. I haven't made
aftermath,
any money yet,
which,
right?
you know, they didn't have that perfected before, but now they've got a whole system.
But you
where even
can
if
make a
nobody
lot of money here.
witnesses it, but a tornado comes
Still
through.
slowly trying to figure
They
out
can
how.
go in and they can look in the aftermath at the.
But I mean,
at the
I've become a
destruction, and they
financial,
can determine
like,
a
not
high
expert,
degree
but
of accuracy, the wind velocity.
I've learned a
and
lot of
then hence
theory.
can categorize the storm. So there's all of these factors that led
And
to
it's a big
many more tornadoes being
identity
reported
shift.
as we come forward. But particularly was the big factor was the advent of, as Brad said, the
You like
Doppler
grow
radar.
into
So
that person.
this
You
is
grow
what
into the money
EPA
guy.
has to say about these 4 graphs on their website. Quote, this
You
figure
become
shows
the money
changes
person. You
in
grow
the
into
number
it.
of
It's like
heat waves per year,
working out. You grow
the
into it.
frequency,
Grow into that.
the average length of heat waves
Person.
in days, which is the duration, the number of days between the first and last heat wave of the
In theory.
year, which is the season, the heat season length, and how hot the heat waves were.
For sure,
compared with
but
the
it's
local
again,
temperature
it's not.
threshold
There's no salary rate. It's not
for
a paid
defining heat wave,
job.
which is the intensity.
But you can
The
make
data
commission.
were analyzed
So when
from
like
1961 to 2021
when you have your license,
for 50 large
yeah, like that's what like we.
metropolitan areas.
This is
Ah,
when you get your license. My commission.
Yes.
yeah, okay.
When you sit down with the family and get them to invest their money.
So website goes on to describe
move the money from a 401k retirement account into, say, like life insurance with annuities account.
First, it states, heat waves are occurring
Better for them
more often
financially
than they used
and
to.
better
Here's a quote. Right, quote.
in terms of tax, not being taxed as much.
Occurring more often than they used to.
Buying a life insurance
major
from
cities
an
across the
investment
United
retirement
States. End
account
of quote.
produces about
Then
maybe
goes on to
3
state
to
that, quote,
4,000,
the average
3,000
heat
to
wave in
4,000
major US urban areas
dollars,
has been about 4
but you
days
get
long.
25%
That
of
is about a
that
day
when you
longer
start
than the average heat wave
as a
in
training
the
associate.
1960s.
So for like helping a
The next
family
key point pertains to the fact that, quote,
replace
the average heat wave season across the
replace the
50
401k
cities
with a tax-free,
in this
tax advantage
indicator is
account,
about
accident
49
free,
days
depending what the
longer now
situation,
than
how
it
much
was in
money,
the
how much capital they
1960s.
have at first, if they
And it
can
was
get
followed by this, quote,
Roth or not.
heat waves have become more
the
intense
like,
over time.
indexed.
During the 1960s, the average heat wave
And as you
across
move up in the
50
company,
cities
you
was 2.0
gain
degrees
65%
Fahrenheit above
when
the
you're
local
a senior
85th
marketing director,
percentile
which is someone who
During
owns,
the 2020s,
who
the average
has
heat wave
a
has been
team.
2.3
So
degrees
Andy is
Fahrenheit
my senior marketing
above the local
director
threshold.
in
So,
World
I think
Financial
what
Group.
we need to really kind of call to our attention is the idea that we're completely
So he
in
has
all of this talking about
he has a team,
urban areas.
and he makes 65% commission.
It's
Okay.
interesting too, if I
So,
can make a comment here. that
35%
the,
of it, if he makes a
heat wave
sale,
intensity
35% of it goes
went down
to
in the 2020s
World Financial
from the
Group company,
2010s,
right?
and I
That's
wonder
kind of the
if that
overhead.
has to do with
He gets 65%.
some
So
of
if he helps
the,
a family
It has to do
as
with
a
the fact
senior
that some of
marketing
the big
director,
cities have started to implement
put up 3 to
Yeah,
4,000
putting heat island
points,
effect
which is like
mitigation.
dollars.
yeah,
He
they're
gets
putting, like,
65% of
green
that
stuff
in the
on
sale.
top of the buildings, and
Yep,
they're planting
yep.
more
So you
trees.
can get like
and yeah, that's great.
$2,800 or something
You know?
Yeah,
on sale,
absolutely.
right?
Reduce your heat island
Yeah.
out there in your
and you can
cities.
just compound
'cause,
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
so
beauty of World
architects are now
Financial
being
Group is
taught
you can
that
build a
in
team,
schools of
you have other
architecture,
people
Great.
Yeah. Urban planners.
work and build, and that's how you
So
get
I wonder,
exponential growth.
I wonder if you put that heat wave season
And that's
heat wave
why I'm
frequency
in this
graphs
business,
up
because
against just like an average
want
population
a team.
density of these metropolitan area graphs
You know what I
for the
mean?
same time period.
To
You'd see
grow.
a basic correlation, or even maybe I don't know,
Even just
size of
for
the city,
fucking
growth rate of the
for
city, something
leadership
like
growth.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd like to see a list of those 50 cities.
And it's also
I
the
was
most lucrative.
Speaking with a friend today who lived in Austin for a couple years, and he said it went from 70,000
You'd be the first, man. You'd be number
to
one, my man.
700,000
You'd be the first guy,
in 30
the
years.
first person.
Yeah.
You know, and these are looking at 60s to the 20s. So
No, but it's really
you know,
interesting
70
because
years, so double that.
I went to
time.
Las
So
Vegas
they're
and I saw
huge.
just
Yeah.
the types
You
of
said
people
earlier, exponential growth
that are very
in these
successful
cities.
and all different
So yeah, that's real
sexes,
deceptive of them again.
genders, ages,
But it gets worse.
races.
so
But that's where most of the people are that you're
Everything.
trying to scare. So
everything, everyone.
That's right. That's right.
It's amazing.
So this is a quote from an architectural design manual published in 2009.
And people
by two
need,
professors
especially in the
of
United States,
architecture and
people
planning
need
in
protection
India who are dealing
from the
with
market
urban heat
right now
island
for their money.
issues over there. The term heat island, and this
Especially
is a
on
quote,
these
the term
down
heat
years,
island refers
'cause
to
the US
urban
market is
air
just so
and
volatile
surface temperatures that are
terms
higher
of
than nearby
fluctuation.
rural areas.
And if you
Many
can protect
US
your
cities
capital
and
or
suburbs
your investment
have air temperatures
during those
up to
down
10
years and not
degrees
lose like
Fahrenheit,
fucking
or
15,
5.6 degrees
20% more.
centigrade warmer
Sorry if anyone did.
than the surrounding natural land cover.
You can get into a protected indexed account
And this is from a paper titled
where you get a
Urban Heat
0%
Island Cause for
minimum
Microclimate Variations,
bottoms basement
that
and a minus
appeared in
20%
architecture,
year.
time, space, and people.
Because that's huge,
that's
right?
interesting because like
On a down
the
year,
20 years that we've
it's
been
not
here
just
at
the
least,
loss of the 20%,
more
it's
now,
it's
but
the recovery
it's
time,
always been
the
a thing.
time
It
it
was like,
takes for you
we're
to
gonna
get
drive to San
back to where
Antonio.
you
You
were.
know it's 10 degrees warmer.
So
over
any
there.
negative years
Yeah.
is
It
so
is here.
exponentially disastrous.
So I just checked. San Antonio was in. Sorry to interrupt, Randall.
No, that's great.
1960, the population of our large city here, San Antonio, the population was
And World Financial Group, it's
580 or 590,000.
It's
In
an agency,
2021,
right?
it was 1.45 million.
That's all it is.
Yeah, geez.
No.
That's
Yeah, there's a very large increase, and you can. I mean,
Might be 12 degrees warmer there
It's a
now.
very powerful
It's-
agency.
it's way hotter in San Antonio than it is out here. It's obvious when you leave the heat island effect when you're driving.
And
out
it's
of the
pretty
city.
much like free education, man.
Yeah,
It's
wow.
insane.
so let that sink.
I mean, you have to pay $100 to join,
Urban areas can
but
be up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer.
to do the
than
test
surrounding
and everything to pass the exam, you
Yeah.
have to pay
So I
like
asked the question, how might this
$300 or
affect the
something.
statistical averages? They're showing up as
And get your
temperature
license, but-
increases in the 4 graphs that we just looked at. So in answering this question, the first thing to realize is that temperature monitoring instruments tend to be located in cities
Thanks for being
or
back.
suburbs. The second thing to realize is that the land areas in which these instruments are located have become progressively more urbanized over the decades since they were first installed. Okay, while the warming is significant and most major cities are, in fact, developing
man.
urban heat island mitigation strategies, it has nothing to do with an increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide. So the key question is does the UHI affect by the statistical analysis of temperature data? And I think the answer is that it does. So here's this is quoting a professor of atmospheric science and director of the Earth System Science Center at the University of Alabama, who along with co-author the late James D. Goodridge, who was the former California state climatologist. They addressed the urban heat island problem in 1995 in a paper that was titled Precision Global Temperatures from Satellites
maybe not.
and Urban Warming Effects of Non-Satellite Data, which appeared in the professional journal Atmospheric Environment. They point
It was
out,
supposed to be nice today,
quote,
but it was not
temperatures
nice.
measured by surface
Outside.
thermometers
It
have
might be tomorrow, but I don't think it's
considerable
gonna be
error
nice tomorrow.
for
And
long-term
I have a meeting
studies
tomorrow
because
night.
of various factors. Widely varying results are shown for California
maybe not.
stations where the few sites chosen for global temperature trend estimation are shown not to be representative of the average trend measured by over 100 stations in the state. Such a result calls into question the ability of scattered,
No worries, man.
selected
No worries, man.
surface
It's-
networks
I'm
to
not-
provide a true picture
Don't-
of long-term
I know.
trends. So
No stress, man.
there becomes the issue, because if there's a bias, how much is that bias?
So is he
Fucking hell,
suggesting
man.
that,
These fucking guards.
you know, if you look at all of the measuring,
Oh my god, these banana
stations, and you
jumpsuit
kinda
guards,
get-
man.
and then that'll give you a sort of an idea of what the real data is.
Yo,
and then
what's
you
up,
could,
anyone
if you
else?
needed to just pick a few to represent that, you could pick ones that were closer to the actual trend, but that they're
Yeah.
not doing that. That's what he's saying.
He's saying yes,
Yeah.
that there's widely varying results between the average of the temperature stations all over the state and
Yeah.
the ones that have been selectively chosen.
Selectively chosen. Yeah.
Yeah, widely varying results are shown for
That's great,
California
dude.
stations, where the few sites chosen
Congrats,
for
man.
global
That's great, man.
temperature trend estimation are shown not to be representative of the average trend measured by over 100 stations that would be throughout the state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll stop share there for a moment. And
Pretty good start.
I'm going to find another graph here. And this graph, actually, now remember what we just looked at
Looks fuck off.
went back to, what was the year, Kyle?
Oh, it's just so fucking bullshit.
1961.
Kyle, you got an extra half attaboy. You done it, dude.
Can't wait to
I
move to Canada.
completed
So excited. Wow, man. Cool, man.
attaboy.
We had before we started recording the podcast tonight, we had some serious issues we had to address. Kyle was threatening to go on strike because he had only, for 6 years, he'd been struggling to get a full attaboy. And so we did. Kyle, did you get a haircut?
No.
Okay.
I was wiping my eyes.
He's weeping for joy. over
Yeah,
here.
it just looked like I didn't see any hair there. I
Oh, it's
thought.
all pulled back. Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
got it. Yeah, you
All
got
right.
it braided.
I just came in from work.
Oh, okay.
Got to keep it out of the way. I made
I
it.
understand that, man. You know, I used to have a ponytail, and the last thing I wanted for it was to
We
get
can
caught in a radio
find
arm
out
saw.
more oftenly. What does that mean, my
You
man?
know.
What do you mean, my
Have the
dude?
welding set it on fire or something.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we should take a moment here, just have an observance. We'll all just have a moment of silence to appreciate the fact that
Kyle has now earned a full attaboy.
has earned a full attaboy. We need to break up some medallions, you know?
Yeah.
Hang out. No, I'm not into hanging out with my dude like very often
Pin them to our jackets.
at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's not
We
me.
need a mugshot of you or a clean image of your face so we can put that
not
on
my
the
thing.
front of the medal.
Yeah. Yeah, just a good
one-
like 3/4 profile.
Yeah, one attaboy. Hey, we can start minting coins. This is the value of this coin is one
One
attaboy.
attaboy.
You know one of your readers or one of your watchers is going to do that. Gonna
Yeah.
get on a 3D printer and create this.
Oh yeah. Make us some coins. Attaboy
Why
coins.
Oh yeah, like of course. Like I mean, come on.
Hey, let's turn it into a crypto.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Make
we
an
can
NFT
maybe
out of
start
it.
Like
a
you
new
can't be
crypto.
saying weird stuff like I'm sad when you're not
serious
stream.
here
We're
for a
gonna
minute
move
now, guys.
into,
We-
like we're gonna hang out.
All
Like
right, back to the urban.
Well, we
I
could
mean,
take
like-
we could take a break. I think.
1961.
Yeah, okay, so that's a
Keep
good
going.
point.
Never forget it.
1961 is the data that they used in those four graphs went back to 1981. Okay,
61.
60,
what did I say? 41,
81.
81, 1961. Yeah. Okay, so what I've done here, the next graph is actually the U.S. Annual Heat Wave Index. This index defines
No worries,
a
man.
heat
Just
wave as a
no
period
worries.
lasting at least 4 days with an average temperature that would only be expected to occur once every 10 years. But you know what? I'm going to actually, that's not a definition. I want the actual definition. Okay, a heat wave is a period lasting at least 4 days with an average temperature that would only be expected to persist over 4 days once every 10 years based on the historical record. The index value for a given year depends on how often such severe heat waves occur and how widespread they are. Okay. So that kind of gives you a picture of it's the heat wave index. that
Yeah,
serves as
dude,
the
please, that'd be
database
great,
for the
man. That'd be
four
great,
graphs we
man.
just looked at.
Please.
Okay, well, let's look. I'm going to look at we'll pull up the graph I have here now is the
Thank
annual
you,
heat
thank
wave
you.
index for the years 1895 to 2020. Okay,
And then I think
take a look.
he'll send you
Take a look at this graph.
the invite.
And if you were going to have
Dust Bowl.
to kind of show a representation to give an accurate and true picture of the average warming over the United States, and you wanted to make it look like it was unprecedentedly warm right now, where, Kyle, about right where would you start?
Oh, 1960s area.
Yeah, maybe
Somewhere
around
right in there.
1960, 61, yeah. So what happens if you take the data just from 1960 or 61 up to now?
There's
And
an upward trend.
conveniently leave off everything that came up to that date from 1890 up to 1961. So here it is, just
still in the
exposed right
60s.
here, exactly how they manipulate the data to
Thanks,
make.
man.
And
Thanks,
so
man.
it
Appreciate
is.
it,
If
man.
you go to the EPA website and you see those four graphs, what's the takeaway? Oh my God, we're in the middle of a climate crisis. We
Appreciate
better
that.
turn over everything, the control of our freedom, our resources, everything to the government, because only the government can stop the climate crisis, blah, blah, blah. And that's essentially what they're doing here. So yeah, here it is, exposed. This is what they did. They took the data from 1961 up to now. And what you see here from 1980 up to now, well, I think we could make a very strong argument that what we're really seeing here is the effects of the urban heat island. And that's the key question we got to ask.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain the pre-1960 stuff either. I mean, if you look at the pre-1960 data, it looks very similar, except for that anomaly of the 30s. You know, it looks like during the 60s and 70s, it looks like an abnormal cooling event, and
that's right.
Then we're returning to a ragged normal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that.
But it does look like the lows aren't as low up towards the 2000s, 210, 220. So maybe that's the effect of the heat island.
Mm-hmm. Because it does. We did learn that it affects the minimum temperature the most.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The minimum temperature is much higher than the rural minimum temperature versus the maximum temperature.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. But yeah, that is a big anomaly in the 30s.
It's a huge anomaly, and then another anomaly.
Yeah, the anomaly in the 60s and 70s is also it's a cold one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's what? I mean, you can look at the other graphs, and you'll see that we've looked at this graph where you see that in the 1960s and 1970s it was actually cooling. And remember the fears about a new ice age?
Yeah, global cooling at the time.
Oh, yeah, because I remember in the late 70s. I remember clipping articles about the coming ice age.
Well, yeah. Because, well, look. Okay, you're in the 70s, and here's your perspective. You're looking backwards, and here's your perspective. You've come out of this over here, and so now you've got this anomalous cooling. At the same time, we're learning that ice ages came and went a whole lot faster and a whole lot more frequently than anybody had imagined back here.
That's right.
So you put those two together, you know, this is what I say a lot of times to the conservatives that are ready to dismiss that. And I'll say, well, there was actually a more justified view that we might have been headed back into a global cooling, because by the 70s with radiocarbon dating, it had become apparent that the Holocene warmth was like the longest period of interglacial warmth going back a couple 100,000 years. That was the message of the first ice cores and stuff.
I mean, I would say that it's still a true statement, right? We're headed to an ice age eventually. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, probably so. And so anyways, this is a great little example of statistical manipulation. By choosing your data points, your range of data, your scaling factors, you can create impressions. And you've got skillful people creating impressions for propaganda purposes.
Well,
so do you think if you showed this whole graph here, people are going to, oh, well, like Mike just said, this is just like a return to a ragged normal.
Yeah.
But,
Not
you know,
scary.
again, how do you explain the 30s? I mean,
stay quiet for a little bit, won't bother anymore.
Pretty
No worries,
amazing
man.
right there. I mean, you
Thanks,
can't,
man.
nobody is trying to blame the
No stress,
30s
man.
on carbon dioxide. Not even the global most, you know, fanatical and dedicated global warmistas are not going there. How do, you know, so you've got to be looking at something natural. Well, what is it?
Yeah. Is anybody trying to find out?
Oh, I imagine there's studies on, you know, the heat waves and droughts of the 30s.
Okay. Yeah, what causes what are the causes?
Well, I want to read you this quote from Wikipedia. I looked up heat wave.
Now, Wikipedia is dangerous because they're definitely they're politically biased, but they're still useful. And in some areas they're pretty good, but in certain areas that have political implications, their bias is pretty stark. But anyways, read the quote.
Okay, yeah, this is it. According to the IPCC, heat waves have become more frequent and over land more intense almost everywhere since the 1950s due to climate change.
Well,
Everywhere there's a city.
Right.
I know. That's what and then they have a link right there with a reference that leads you to a IPCC paper
Almost everywhere.
called
almost every.
Climate Change 2021.
Now look up
Physical Science
warmistas.
Basis.
I want to see what warmistas says on Wikipedia. Global warmistas.
Yeah, that was a great. That was a
I
great one.
apologize for that personal attack on true believers everywhere.
But that's how they synthesize the data, right? It's like the heat waves have become more frequent and more intense almost everywhere.
Almost everywhere. What does that even mean? And see, what we just saw is basically the data. And so the EPA puts this up in such a way that the average person who doesn't dig into it is going to go away with an impression. And I guarantee you, for every one person that actually digs into it, there's probably 100 people that will see it. And so the noise of all of this misinformation completely drowns out the one or two people that are saying, well, wait a second, time out. Let's take a deeper look at this. And then you see that, things aren't quite adding up here. And most people are going to read over that and go, oh, okay, 50 cities, but they don't, if you're somewhat educated in these issues, you immediately go, well, how did you account for the urban heat island? Most people who might read that, are not going to see 50 cities and even single that out as an issue. Yeah. They're just going to go right past it, and it won't even register as being significant. And that's what they're relying on. So what they want to do is be able to create an impression without being able to be caught in a total lie. So it's a whole art. It's a fine art that gets way too many people fooled.
And then that creates a narrative, and then the narrative is no longer their responsibility.
That's right.
They can manipulate the data just so that it gets the narrative started, and then once that happens, their job is done.
Let it run.
Yep. So,
break time.
Break time. Let's take a little break here. All right.
The ASMR stream.
All right, yes, sir. Welcome back, everybody. Cosmographia podcast, and we're just going to get right into it after a brief word for the sponsor, CBD from the Gods. Randall, what do you got?
Well, I got my brand new jar of Hollow Salve, and I'll be bringing that, I think when this goes out, Bradley and I will already have made our drive over to Austin. Is that right, Brad?
That's right.
Okay, so this is now in our future, but is in your past. So we got a little bit of a warpage in the space-time continuum here, but so in a couple of days, Bradley and I are driving from Atlanta out to Austin. I'm going to be make appearance number 7 on Joe Rogan with Graham Hancock. And by the time you see this, that will have already happened. So on the way, I will be bringing not only my salve, because being cooped up in a vehicle for something like 14 hours, you get stiff, your muscles start to ache a little bit, so I'm going to have my salve, and I'm going to have my oil, so I can take a half a milliliter of that or a couple of milliliters of that at night to help me sleep. And I want to be in top form for when I'm on Joe's show. And I think this is going to help. So CBD from the Gods. Check out their website. They've got a new sort of an upgraded formula or something that they're using. I have to dig down and find out what they're doing, but they have an improved product according to Mike Robertson, who's a partner in the company, and he's going to tell me about that, what they're doing. So I'm anxious to find out because, they have a philosophy of constantly improving their product, which I like because, this whole CBD thing is a relatively new industry. I mean, 10 years ago, think of now compared to 10 years ago, 15, well, there was none. 15 or 20 years ago, was there?
No.
You couldn't even get the
started to learn about cannabinoids.
Yeah, just starting to learn about it. And we're still learning. And anyhow, I think these folks are in the forefront of producing a really high-grade product. So
I
glad
do
to
think they've got some specials coming up starting Black Friday there, a day after Thanksgiving. Pretty sure going to go through either Christmas or the end of the year. So
yeah, that's right.
Check into cbdfromtheguys.com.
It's doing good.
But this will be out when we get back, right? So then you can say what you're doing with Graham there and what you're going to talk about. So his series is going to be up on Netflix.
Yeah. So there's an 8-part series coming up. It's going to see airtime on November 11th. I'm not sure if it's going to be shown, if they're going to dump all 8 episodes at once for binge watching. Is that the plan, or are they going to?
That's what I was told. All 8 episodes would.
You too, dude.
On 11/11.
Okay, and I.
Catastrophe binge.
It's called Ancient Apocalypse.
Ancient Apocalypse, yeah, and I'm prominently featured in episode 8.
Bud. You too, dude.
In other words, as it's building towards the climax, finally at the climax of the whole
whatever
series.
Shit. Anyways.
I show
shit.
up.
It's fast, but
in the Scablands, that's right.
Whatever.
We had some ominous weather there at
whatever.
Wallula Gap, and yeah,
too bad.
took Graham a while to record the final scene.
It wasn't ideal.
You know, the culmination of the whole series happened right there at Wallula Gap with the dark clouds after it just did this crazy rain and wind.
Fast though.
You know, once they get all the cameras set up, and then this rain set in, and it was super windy that day. Yeah, so it was pretty ominous ending there. And maybe I'll be in the back up against the rock there at the Twin Sisters. I don't know if
I'm gonna you too, man. You too, dude.
Yeah, that's another event coming up, the Cosmic Summit 2023 here in Asheville. It's going to be mid-June. So yeah, those tickets are going to be available when this comes out also. So yeah, I was sharing some photos from our last trip to the Scablands with Mike, who's making a video for that, the website that should be active now, Cosmic Summit 2023.
Yeah, and that's going to be with George Howard's organizing it. George Howard, one of the co-founders of the Comet Research Group or team, and some interesting people going to be showing up. Yeah, there is a first level website announcement about it. If you just put in Cosmic Summit, you'll be able to see who's going to be participating, and it's a pretty good lineup.
But yeah, Graham Hancock's coming over. Right?
Yeah.
He's committed, and Johanna James and Jimmy from Bright Insight's going to be out there. George went to Egypt with both of them and made friends, and he wants to start getting them out in front of the public, not just on YouTube. So they're going to participate. And
Martin Sweatman.
Also, yeah,
Martin Sweatman.
Martin Sweatman, and some of the younger Dryas impact hypothesis scientists and other related folks. Ken Tankersley, is over at University of Cincinnati, and
Ben Van Kerkwick will be there.
Yep.
Right, Ben from Uncharted X.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be a great lineup. There's someone else. It's not Chris Moore that we traveled with to look at the Carolina Bays. That he's prominent with the Comet Research Group now, and it's not Roger Moore. So there's somebody more. Well, we'll figure that out. But
there's at least one more person.
He's an archaeologist. Also, that George was real happy that we were able to bring him into the program. So yeah, that's going to be a great show for 2.5 days in the middle of June.
Yeah, and he's got a really nice space that he is reserved for this gathering.
Yeah, it's just outside downtown Asheville, right off the French Broad River. Yeah, I was actually right there a couple hours ago.
And I was thinking perhaps maybe we didn't tack on a bonus day at the end, some kind of thing that would be essentially separate from the conference itself, but would be, something that would complement it if people wanted to do that in addition to, and we'd take a little field trip out, because there's some stuff around Asheville that pretty impressive. Landscapes are fantastic.
You're nice, man.
Like boulder streams, potholes, things like
good,
that
man.
that are pretty impressive in your own right. And that's the thing we've talked about before, is there's a lot of these features we see out in the Scablands, not on the same scale, but still a scale that's extremely impressive. But you don't really see it because it's buried under the foliage.
Right. Yeah, there's like 100 waterfalls nearby because the Continental Divide comes real close to Asheville. So there's lots of beautiful waterfalls nearby. So yeah, I'm not sure what all we can see in a day. You got Mount Mitchell, that's the highest point east of the Mississippi, is just north of Asheville. And then also, you know, if we're talking about tacking things on, it's right before the summer solstice, and I think we ought to get a caravan of people to go up to Serpent Mound. Throw that out there.
You just need to rent a train, I guess. I mean, how many people are we talking about?
Thinking big.
It's Dr. Andrew Moore.
Andrew Moore, yeah.
Thank you.
That's what it is.
My apologies, Dr. Andrew.
Mark Young.
Now, I will mention though that we're going to complete the Cumberland Plateau trifecta in March, towards the end of March. We've got that tour planned, and that's going to be pretty impressive. We're going to be going into landscapes that have the greatest concentration of rock arches and natural bridges, second only to Arches National Park. We're going to be going into exploring an astrobleem with a town in the middle of it at Middlesboro, and some pretty impressive erosion and boulder streams and waterfalls and things like that. And the place where we're going to be staying is awesome. So anybody listening to this, look up Cliff View Resort, Kentucky. And we've got that whole place reserved for this particular tour group in March. So check that out.
Right, so that'll be on the RandallCarlson.com tours and events page. But again, all those links are in the description. But yeah, it's up in the Red River Gorge area of Kentucky. Again, the Upper Cumberland Plateau. That's east of Lexington. So we'll be spending some couple days in that area, and then also the Cumberland Gap there runs right into the astrobleem Randall's talking about at Middlesboro, and then also Cumberland Falls. So yeah, we got some awesome stops set up for that one in late March. It's like the last 5 days of March.
In fact, the tour starts on my birthday.
God, man.
So, first day of the tour. I turned 36. So.
On the Ides of March.
Times 2.
Oh, you're like 1 degree of the great year or something at that point.
Well, the actual.
You already passed that.
I passed that.
Oh, that's right. I remember that came up. Yep.
Yeah, that came up like.
That was on the previous Cumberland tour.
I guess it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
25,920 days old. That's how many days so now I'm over that. My God. So it's a good thing that I'm getting potentially access to opportunities that could restore our biblical lifespans. If I'm successful in that endeavor, I will be sharing the results of it with you guys.
All right.
I mean, it would be sucked.
We'll still be podcasting 600 years from now, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just don't put patchouli oil in it, man, and I'll use it.
Don't. Okay, you got a deal there. That's one of the. Well, maybe I shouldn't go there, but.
Yeah, let's get back to the climate.
Yeah. Okay.
Fuck you, man.
So yeah, we were talking about how the temperature record might get biased by the urban heat island effect, and I think we can safely conclude that there's a higher degree of confidence that is in fact the case.
I might just play Mega Man 5.
I'm thinking, even though we did look at this, it wouldn't hurt to just take a quick look back at some of this, just because we're talking about how statistics can be manipulated in order to create false impressions. I'm going to pull up one graph here that I think is very significant. I won't necessarily go into all of the science behind it, but I will tell you what I'll do here now. All right, this is your Geocarb 3, a revised model of atmospheric carbon dioxide over Phanerozoic times. Okay, so this is like the updating, which occurred about 20 years ago, but it's continuously being updated, and the results that you're going to see in this particular graph have not been appreciably changed since this data. In fact, the accuracy of this has kind of only been confirmed. So this is paleo levels of atmospheric CO2 has been made with emphasis on factors affecting CO2 uptake by continental weathering. This includes new global climate model or general circulation models, results for the dependence of global mean surface temperature and runoff on CO2 for both glaciated and non-glaciated periods. I'm going to jump right down here to the second paragraph. Results show a similar overall pattern to those for Geocarb 2. This is Geocarb 3. Geocarb 4 has not appreciably changed the data that we're going to see here. So you have very high carbon dioxide values during the early Paleozoic, right? We're going back into the Ordovician and Cambrian. A large drop during the Devonian and Carboniferous. High values during the Mesozoic or middle life. Paleozoic is old life, right? Mesozoic is middle life.